Hi everyone, Molten here, and we're back for our continuation of our speedrun series today. So we're gonna start another game. We're currently at about the almost 1500 level range, and this is where things get somewhat interesting in terms of the type of gameplay we're gonna get into. So again, in this speedrun, we're gonna go for mainly gambit type of openings, and in this position our opponent's gone for a Petroff defense, which is actually one of the toughest openings to crack, and it's an opening I actually recommend quite a lot to players of all levels, but especially at beginner level if you want to avoid a lot of opening theory that comes with the mainline openings, then this is an excellent approach. Now knight takes e4. Now white has a couple of different options in this position we can go for. So we can play knight c3, which is one of the main popular options, where white will go for like a castle queenside approach and attack with the pawns on the king side. But I'm going to go d4, which is one of the main moves here for white. Now often black will either retreat or push the pawn to d5. And here white can, again, play a number of different options, the main one being bishop to d3. So I'll stick with bishop to d3. Bishop to d6. Okay, let's castle, get our king to safety. Black castles. And in this position, the main move for white is to challenge the center with this move pawn to c4. So we're all still in relatively known theoretical territory at the moment. So we can take here or play the move knight to c3. So here after knight to c3, we're putting some pressure on this knight on e4. So this knight is a fantastic piece, and if we can get this knight to either exchange off or capture, then that would relieve some pressure. Also, after this capture, we get the open b file now that we can definitely use later on, and we also potentially get a passed pawn in the center in the future. So after captures there, we can capture here. So I should point out that you should always be on the lookout for this sort of fishing pole tactic, not fishing pole, this Greek gift tactic with bishop takes h7. And after king takes, you can play the move knight to g5 check. The king moves back, and then you can bring your queen out to h5. But remember, this doesn't work if your opponent can bring their bishop out to the f5 square, which would cover h7. So just be aware of this. In some position it does work, and in this position I don't think it does. So I'm just going to go bishop takes on c4 instead. So I'm pretty sure this is all still like theory, although I've forgotten my theory, so I don't exactly know what white's supposed to do here. So after bishop g4, the main move I'm guessing should be h3. I know there is a line somewhere after bishop f5. I think it's bishop f5 where white can play the move bishop to g5, and after queen c7 there's some very nice knight h4 move where you can sacrifice this h2 pawn. But after this move bishop to h3, I think we should play g3 to h3, sorry. And now the question is whether we should play the move pawn to g4. Now in some positions it's necessary to weaken your king a little bit in order to get rid of this pin, because I really don't want to waste a move bringing my bishop back to e2. And the fact that my opponent has used no time also indicates to me that it's very likely that they're still in preparation. So our opponent is definitely knowing what they're doing in this position. But I'm thinking g4, and after the bishop goes back, maybe we need to harass the bishop a little bit, maybe bring the knight into the e5 square. I feel like this is the correct approach. It does weaken our position a little bit, but if we can force, let's say, a trade of bishop for one of our knights, then maybe we can gain a little bit of space for our bishop pair, and also then we can maybe think about start pushing our pawns in the future and going from there. So I think knight e5 here. So my plan is to go f4 and start pushing all my kingside pawns to really harass this bishop if I'm allowed to. If my opponent captures the knight, then I'm happy to just capture back. And then if he trades queens, I'm happy to trade queens because I have the bishop pair. And I'm just going to start pushing these pawns up. If he doesn't capture, then I might consider capturing this bishop myself. So that could be an option. But either way, I'm really chasing after the bishop pair here. That's really my main goal. So captures, we capture back. And again, sometimes, yeah, you need to be able to sort of weaken your king a little bit in order to sort of get rid of these sort of nasty pins. Okay, queen to a5. So that's a very good move. So after the move queen to a5, he's attacking both our pawns. So we need to find a way to protect these pawns. Also, rook d8 is coming as well, so we need to watch out for rook to d8. Now we have maybe only one move or two moves which defend both our pawns. So I can see queen to d4, which would defend these pawns. But then after queen to d4, it might be possible for him to play rook to d8 there. And then I'd have to drop my queen back to e3. There's also queen e1, but queen e1 feels a little bit sort of artificial. I don't like queen e1 as much. Yeah, f4 I don't like. I wonder if there's any way for us to sacrifice the pawn. Queen b3. But it's hard to believe. Hard to believe that's working. So maybe I have to go queen d4. So queen d4, rook d8, queen e3, knight d7. Maybe I go f4 there. So we need to maintain this pawn at all costs, I think. And we need to get in f4. If we don't manage to do that and get in f4, then our position is going to be definitely worse. If we give black too much time, then black will play rook d8 and start bringing all the pieces into the game. So yeah, black is playing very, very accurate moves. So black is attacking my knights, attacking my pawns now. And knight b6 is coming as well. So if I go f4, which is like the obvious move, then what does he play? He's gonna get a rook into d3. So if I go f4, knight to b6, bishop to b3, then rook d3 is a problem. And I think that might even be... that looks really, really bad for us, actually. So I might want to avoid that one. Because after rook d3, I have to move my queen. I do have f5 coming, but it's hard to believe that this is working. But it could be working. Probably should double check, but if it's not working, our position is just lost. Either way, I do feel like we have to play f4, but so f4, knight b6, if we drop the bishop back to e2, then there's knight to d5. And then he's going to pick up the pawn on c3. So this is a very tough position to play as white, actually. Have to be very, very careful here. And in fact, it already might be worse. What if I play the move pawn to e6? The pawn to e6, worst case, he can just take it. Let's say I take back. I don't really see a follow-up. That's the problem. So at the moment I'm tempted about f4, knight b6, and just going for this variation where I allow the rook to get into this square. But yeah, this is very, very risky because the rook's going to get into here somewhere and start checking my king. But we'll see how it goes. So knight b6, bishop b3, rook to d3. If queen goes here, rook takes h3, and then my idea is maybe to play f5 there. This looks very, very messy, but it might be working. Either way, I have to go for f4, f5. Like I said, if I don't go for f4, f5, I think I can be much worse. Queen to b6. This move is not that critical, is it? Also, doesn't it lose a piece? Why can't I just play f5? Okay, f5, knight takes e5, bishop to e2. I don't see it. So I think black wins the pawn on e5, but black's probably going to end up losing a piece. afterwards. Mind you, I think my opponent is like very underrated. Should be much stronger than 1400. Because they've played very, very well this whole game. I think probably if they continue with knight to b6, then position gets like very, very unclear. So this one I can drop the bishop back to e2. So here the bishops defend basically all the entry points for all of black's pieces. So there's no rooks coming into d3 or d2, and the knight is well covered. So there's nowhere for the knight to go. And then I can just pick up the bishop and then try to consolidate after that. Okay, so I think I can take the bishop. So I'm threatening to take here. So if black captures back with the knight, I can just play the move king to f2 and then defend my bishops along this rank. So my bishop should be fine. There shouldn't be any issues there. But it's very important that I have this resource of king to f2. Also, I didn't have to take right away. I could have also waited. That might have also been a good option. Okay, so black recaptures. Makes sense. Now let's play bishop to d4. So we want to trade off pieces now. That's our goal. So our opponent has 2 pawns for the bishop, but one of them is a pair of doubled pawns. So what I want to do now is capture the knight and then post my bishop on c4. So on the c4 square, I can apply permanent pressure to this f7 pawn. You really want to find weaknesses in your opponent's position where you can sort of just target. But yeah, if I put my bishop here, I can double rooks and gain the initiative. Okay, so I'll put my bishop on c4 because the rook was attacking the bishop here on e2. So we move our bishop, post it on this square. I played the move rook to e7. So let's play the move rook to e1. So here we want to challenge the rook, get the open e file. So if black captures, then we'll just capture back. There's also a tactic. If black moves this rook to e8, then we can actually play this move bishop takes f7, which is a nice tactic to win some material. But if black captures, then we'll just recapture. Yeah, so if black doesn't capture, then we're definitely going to gain control over the e file. Also, this pawn is hanging in a lot of positions, but yeah, it's one of these poison pawns in the corner, so you want to be careful if you capture it in case your pieces get stuck. So yeah, here white has a winning tactic to pick up some material. So if you didn't spot it before, then you can try to have a look for it. In this position, white can play the move bishop takes f7. So the idea being, if black takes with the rook, then we can capture the rook on e8. Capture rook on e8. Now we can capture this rook, and okay, now we should be clearly winning. So we have checkmate here, rook check, and then we have bishop e3. Okay, so that was a very well played game, I thought, by my opponent. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into the analysis, so we'll have a quick look at this game. But yeah, I went for a main line of the Petroff just to show you what the main line approach is. But of course, there are many ways you can deviate and many excellent moves for white. Like, this is one really good setup against the Petroff where it's quite simple for white to play, where you can just castle your king across to the queen side and start pushing your pawns on the king side to get some sort of initiative going. And there are really countless moves here for white. I mean, bishop d3 is a move, c4, and so on. We can go on and on, but d4, d5, bishop to d3. So we go into the mainline approach, and here white plays the move knight to c3. I thought this was all fine. Takes, bishop g4. So here I'm sort of out of book. After h3, bishop h5. I know there are some ideas here where white can push this pawn up the board. Rook e1, rook b1 are ideas as well. But it's giving g4 is okay. Bishop g6. And here knight e5, the computer doesn't mind knight e5. So the idea, like I said, is to go for the bishops. So if I'm going to weaken my position like this, I really want something for it. And here I want to go for the bishop pair. After bishop takes. My opponent is playing extremely well. Clearly, they're very well prepared in this main line. And this is sometimes the danger of going into main lines against your opponent. Sometimes your opponent will just know it very, very well. So yeah, it doesn't like queen to d4 move we played. it really likes queen to b3, so maybe this is the main move for white in this position. And after queen takes e5, bishop to a3. Okay, so this is something I didn't really consider because I didn't exactly know the theory in this position. But okay, so queen to b3 is the move. After the move, queen to d4, rook to d8. Actually, black is doing quite well already. Queen to e3, because we've lost a couple of valuable tempi with our pieces. So after the move, queen to e3, knight to d7 was very good move. f4, and here, yeah, I was most worried about this move, knight to b6. But it's the only move as well, because if black doesn't play knight to b6 in this position, then f5 is coming very quickly, and if he allows f5, it's just worse. So he has to play this, and here I was most worried about this move, rook to d3. But apparently I can hold everything together, the engine reckons, with queen e1. So in my analysis I was looking at queen to f2. But yeah, queen to e1 might be the move because it protects this pawn here. So the idea is that if black takes the pawn here, then we can play the move pawn to f5 again, trapping this bishop. So we've pushed all our pawns in front of our king, but it doesn't matter because as long as we manage to win the bishop, then it should be fine. We can defend everything with the move king g2, chasing this rook away from h3 square. And if black tries to capture here, then we're happy to, of course, trade queens. So apparently rook b3, the move I was worried about, isn't necessarily as dangerous as I thought. So maybe that's why it's recommending bishop to d3. So okay, bishop d3 makes a lot of sense because black wants to avoid getting the bishop trapped, and it also blocks the defense of this pawn on c3. So here after this move, rook f2, let's say queen takes c3, bishop to b2. And here white's getting advantage as well. So it's a very messy position. Like both players have to be very accurate, otherwise we see the game can swing in either direction really quickly. But definitely trying to keep this bishop in the game. Also on this square, it sort of secures the c4 square for the bishop and the knight to hop into. This is a really useful square. After the move queen b6 though, I think it's completely lost, because now I just play the move pawn to f5, and yeah, here once I win the bishop, there shouldn't really be much play here for black left. And yeah, I can utilize my bishops, bring the bishop to the c4 square, attack this weakness on f7, and then once I double the rooks, I have this tactic with bishop takes f7. So I guess the key moments of this game were back here for white. I definitely needed to find this move queen to b3, or I just needed to know this line, or spend a bit more time on this particular move. The idea is that if he pushes here to chase my bishop, I drop the bishop back, then the queen's actually being blocked from the attack on the e5 pawn. This is the main idea. So after the move queen d4, here black is starting to get some initiative, but the key moment is, yeah, he had to find knight to b6, and then he had to find this move bishop to d3 as well. So not exactly that easy. I had to be very accurate from both sides. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this mainline Petroff and learned a few things about advancing your pawns and when to do it, when not to do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next game in the speedrun. Take care.